right in. So, Griffin, hey, great to see you. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me today. Looking forward to this conversation.
Likewise, I appreciate you for having me. It's good to see you, and yeah, excited to share.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to dive right in. So, you're 28 years old. That is, I would say, considered young for our industry. We talk a lot about the age of the folks in our business, and so you stand out at that age. How does that make you different, in your opinion?
Um, I don't know. I like to say that like I don't necessarily think it's the age that's the factor. I think it's more how we embrace honestly like technology and new ways of communicating. I would say is the big one. Like one, and naturally I work with a little bit younger clients, late 20s to early 40s generally, lots of young families and stuff like that. But I mean, via text, like I love to communicate via text. It's how I grew up communicating, and that's how lots of people these days like communicating. Getting on a phone call, which I think is what a lot of older, more seasoned, I should say, loan officers are used to. Um, I feel like that's a burden. I feel like it can be an inconvenience for people. And people aren't, especially my generation, not as comfortable talking on the phone. I
Hmm.
think as so communicating via text, I think is a big one just to be comfortable with, and there's a certain way to do it, right? There's strategy in every aspect of our business. Even the small nuances is what I like to focus on a lot. From using emojis to being able to text in kind of a dialect that is positive and that is endearing. That is fun. That way you can kind of still keep it like just the way you can send a text. Sometimes I have to remind myself like I'm a little, worn down. It's the end of the day. It's late. Like I could just respond, kind of a short response, but I try and keep myself like, hey, this is all impacts the client's experience, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I
Um,
think you make a great point because over the years, the way that people, well, let me take a step back. Somebody very smart once told me the question was, how do we communicate with consumers as we move forward? And the answer was very simple. We communicate with them the way that they want to be communicated with. Right. So
Absolutely.
it's not about what's comfortable for us as the salesperson, but rather
Right.
how does our customer want to be communicated with? So for you, you have found that it's obviously in your comfort zone, and so I think
Yeah.
that's a very very wise kind of look at the business. So for you, it's intentional. You're going to be very careful about the things you say. Maybe take that
Hmm.
extra time to build that right communication. So I think that. Would you say then for the people that you work with on a regular basis, is text messaging now the most effective way to get the point across?
I would say, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a fine line because there's lots of important things we have to talk about, and I definitely prefer to have most of the important communication over the phone. But via text is definitely like day to day. I feel like the client's experience is mostly handled in like obviously we know how they feel. The whole thing goes right. They don't oftentimes remember one little thing here or there, but they just know how they felt during the transaction. And so like I love doing daily or maybe once every couple of days text messages. It was like, hey, our loan submitted in the underwriting queue. Everything's looking great. We're right on time for our loan contingency and our close date. Just want to keep you updated, smiley face. I'll touch base with you tomorrow. And
Yeah.
that goes, oh, I found that goes a really long way in people having a good experience with the
Yeah.
transactions.
Well, and also very efficient for you.
Exactly. Yeah, super efficient. And like what I'll do sometimes too is like if I get up, I've been this year I've actually switched a lot and I've gotten up a lot earlier and actually gotten to the office a lot earlier. And I don't want clients' phone buzzing at 7 a.m. if they don't have their phone set on do not disturb. So I'll schedule text messages a lot on iPhone. I think Android has that feature too. So I'll get
Hmm.
in at 7. I'll spend just 20 minutes scheduling, you know, 6 or 7, or how many transactions I have. I'll schedule text messages for 8:30 a.m. for clients. And so boom, at 8:30 they just go out. I don't have to deal with later and I can spend that quiet time to get that done and move on.
Yeah, love that strategy. So really the answer to the question at 28 years old, really you're dialed in to the needs of your customers and for the age group that you really try to take care of and service. For you it's second nature. Let me ask you a little bit, and you and I are in the same boat in this particular particular point. Your dad's in the business. So I'm curious, growing up in the business, you have two choices. And like I said, my dad, I grew up in the business as well. You either run from it or you run to it. I'm curious,
Yeah.
what kind of drove you to the business?
I thought like I didn't really know I was gonna or wanted to dive into this business until I was in college and really started thinking about my career. And mostly just seeing my dad's lifestyle. You know, he was able to work from home a lot, be flexible. My dad would, I mean, like many dads like to impart wisdom. And he was always telling me, Griffin, you want a job or a career where you don't have to be at the desk to make money.
Mm.
And so I was always financially driven, you know, like I don't sugarcoat it. Like, you know, I want a career that has a good lifestyle that I enjoy, that affords me, you know, the way that I want to live. And so that's really, it was like, I have the same skills as my dad. I like to interact with people. And you know, its flexibility is really, you know, what brought me to it. And then I was telling, you know, obviously my manager, Sam, down here in San Diego, one thing that I've fallen in love with though since getting into the industry, which you know I chose the job because I thought it'd be a good means to an end and a good career, and I have learned to love it. I do think people can learn to love things as they get better, of course, and as they commit themselves to it. And I've learned to love, you know, helping people. That's what a lot of lenders say. I like to help people, but I've seen, especially with like we'll probably talk about soon, like the kind of my niche that I focus on are these younger first-time home buyers who are uneducated,
Mhm.
especially when they're buying condos. That's been a huge sector of my business because I've seen clients face huge pitfalls with condos. I've even had seen clients work with other banks, lose their deposit working with and trying to buy a condo. And so like I've found a little bit more of my why, you could say, or a little bit more of my drive that's fired me up, by saying like, hey, like we are really out here to protect our clients' money, you know, not just get them a loan and make it easy. You know, we are here to protect these people. And that has actually kind of helped me grow my business a lot this last year
Yeah.
is by finding that thing that, and it's happened to also just make me stand out.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it shows in your approach, your delivery, the way that you handle your customer. They feel that difference in you.
Definitely. And like I just actually got I just joined a BNI networking group down here in San Diego that I've been fighting for the last 6 months for this position. And I just wanted over actually was standing up against 5 other lenders fighting for this one spot because this networking group only has one lender position, right?
Wow.
One realtor, one lender, and I was by far the youngest and you know at the least the amount of years in the business. And some of the feedback I got after I got the position was we like your fire, you know, we like
Mm.
your, and I do think that is one thing that is very hard, I'm sure, to hold on to 10, 15, 20 years in the business. You've done, you know, hundreds, maybe thousands of loans, a lot of repetition in our industry. It's hard to keep fired up. And so, you know, a part of maybe that just my youthfulness and me just being younger, but not having kids yet. But also like how I look at my business and how I help people. They can hear when I'm talking, like, hey, I had a client, and they can hear that I'm passionate about protecting them and making sure that they're making good decisions that aren't going to cost them dollars because they don't know. The client really doesn't know. It's our job to protect them. And so that's come through, and that's also helped differentiate me
Yeah.
just
Well,
in the phone.
look, there is a way to keep that passion, and we talk about that a lot here at AWM, where you know, I think the important part is keeping in mind that there are families involved in these transactions.
Yeah.
They're not just a loan number. There's a
Mhm.
mom, a dad. There's kids. You know, the son and the daughter that are looking forward to that new bedroom, whatever it may be. Those are real human emotions and pieces that if we hold on to that, I think you can maintain that passion for the business.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it just, you know, I've experienced it even just being in the business, you know, 3 or 4 years now. It does ebb and flow. You know, there are times when I'm like, you know, get bogged down, whatever, you know, home is busy, travel, which is, you know, fun, but and then, you know, you get overwhelmed with loan files and new applications and stuff. It's really easy to you know, to let that fade a little bit. So like one take that I have in my brain that again Sam actually gave me was like every time I'm on the phone with a client, even if it's just a check-in or anything, I try and force myself to smile. Not that they can see me smile, but the inflection that brings out in your voice is small, but it is powerful, and
Yeah,
it does give that, you know, that little bit of bump, that little bit of positive feeling through the phone. Um, and so,
love
you know,
that.
even when I'm not feeling great, I just force myself to smile while I'm talking, and I think it's a better, you know, outcome for sure.
Yeah, another pro tip, definitely good. That's That's great advice. Back to your dad, though. Do you feel any pressure to be successful, knowing that your dad is in the business? And if you do, how do you use that productively?
Good question. I wouldn't say I feel pressure from because my dad's in the business. I guess it's all just self-placed pressure to succeed. I've never felt like I needed to surpass him at a certain point in time or anything like that. It's really just my own, my own drive, I guess. But what I do have and what is important to my business is as a son, like my dad was, my first idol and making him proud, right? Like my dad knows the business, obviously. He's at his own mortgage bank, even on a small scale, and making him proud of the way that I operate my business is maybe more important than my production. My dad, when I was growing up, even though I didn't understand the business when I was young, but he always made a very clear point that we run our lives and our businesses very ethically with high integrity. There's a lot of opportunity in our industry to have some moral drift, I call it, right? Like, oh well, maybe you do a deal and the occupancy is a little hazy, right? It's very easy to say yes to those, and those little movements over time, next thing you know, you could be I have a lender like fabricating an offshore employment for guys who can't qualify to create fake income, right? And you wonder how that happens, but it happens by small movements. And so that has always been really important to me, especially communicating with my dad about loans every other day. Is we run our businesses with high integrity, and we get scenarios all the time where there's gray
Yeah,
to
for
not
sure.
do things as ethically as you can. And so that's probably what's been most important with my dad is he's been a good rock to remind me, hey, there will be no deal, no amount of money that will ever be worth your principles, let alone risking your family, God forbid, you go to jail or
Yeah.
no, there's no amount of money or deal or relationship that will ever be more important than your own principle.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And you know what, Griffin, honestly, that shines through in the way you do your business internally. I have yet to meet anybody here at AWM that's worked with you that doesn't, just think the very highly of you and the way that you operate. So it's evident. It's evident for sure. Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about technology. You mentioned earlier, as a younger, a younger loan officer, obviously you grew up with technology. For a lot of us, myself included, I remember getting my first laptop, right? And that was, I was probably about your age, and so it was all brand new. Today, you've got 2-year-olds with iPhones. So ultimately, I want to talk about one product in particular that we can start with, and that's home power, which
Yeah.
is I know near and dear to your heart. But I want to know, exactly your thoughts on technology. But let's, home power specifically. What did that change for you day one?
It's a tough question because I joined AWM so early in my career. I didn't have a lot of transactions under my belt before I even started using home power.
Okay,
So
yeah,
there was not change that happened because I was lucky enough to get started with technology from the get-go. Not at my own volition. It's like, when I was learning the industry, my mentor, that was important to him. And so it became important to me just as I was even learning the business. But now that I've, done some transactions and been in the business for a minute, it time and time again separates you from the competition. I think people every day, no matter their age, consume are online, obviously, with work, on their phone, Instagram, social media, whatever. And people are used to seeing clear and high quality image, honestly, just bare bones, like content, whatever it is. They used to see high quality things in their own technology. And so why, when they're getting a mortgage and spending maybe a lot of their life savings, should they see rudimentary spreadsheets or PDFs? Like they don't interact with that
Mhm.
stuff day to day, right? Like we need to match clients at what they're used to consuming. And I don't necessarily think that, clients will get a loan estimate from some guy at a bank and think down on it. Maybe they just think that's the way that it's done. But when they get a quote from me and I have it in a much more clear format, in a much more digestible way to view it, and it's a lot more enjoyable, a lot easier to access. It just creates such a better experience, and it makes me stand out. So it has become one of the main cornerstones of my business that I will never falter on, even if I'm tired and it's, my third pre-approval, fifth pre-approval of the day. I will do my quoting exactly the same way through Home Power, because it's a game changer for my business, and it's what people know me for. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
Griffin provides really high quality education, really high quality information, in a really high quality format.
But by buying into this, I think you've solved from what I see from the outside looking in, and I was a loan officer that I used whatever tools I had available. You're doing the same thing and recognizing that number one, it creates an efficiency in terms of the way that you disseminate the communication. I
Yeah.
know, and I believe I was down in your office. I've been there a couple of times, and I've heard the conversation where you're saying, "Hey, this is I can do a 15, 20-minute video which clearly describes what's happening in the transaction.
Mhm.
That might save me 45 minutes on the phone with somebody, which typically drags out, and there's a lot of wasted time on that conversation. And the other thing that struck me about that, and you may have even been the one who said this, was that you noticed that people watch it multiple times. So,
Yeah.
so they're able to go back and sort of rewind the conversation. Hey, let me listen to that again, because I don't care how smart most people, and especially if you're dealing with first-time home buyers, they've never done this before. So even though they're listening, they don't really understand everything that you're saying to them. This gives them an opportunity to really stop and digest.
Definitely. Both of those things are huge. The time component for sure, especially as I started to scale up my business. It saves a immense amount of time. But I think what you said, the secondly, is most important is clients, they're used in the mortgage industry. We usually do things over the phone, and clients are taking notes. And like, I hate taking notes personally. Like, I don't want to have to reference some piece of paper where I scribbled some information. You never remember exactly what they said.
Or can you read your own writing, right?
Exactly. It's like, and there's so many numbers. I mean, it's very complicated. So putting things every time, I put it in a video. I use a platform called Loom. I record it, and I would talk them through, and whatever were the loan estimate, the fees, whatever it is. And that is, everybody loves the videos. They love my videos. They're one-to-one videos, and I'm saying like, hey, Ryan and Sarah, here's where we are. Here's the process of our loan. Here are the numbers. People love it. People love it. They feel so much more comfortable that they can reference back to what you said, and they know you're not hiding the ball. They know, like, there's never a question later, and I don't think they think about this. I think it's in the back of their heads. There's no question later of, oh, Griffin quoted me over the phone 6.375, and now we get to the escrow, and now he's saying 6.5, and like, who was right?
Yeah.
When it's swirling on your brain and it's been 3 weeks. But it's like, I tell them, hey, in my video, like, you can reference these numbers back anytime. The video's here. You can never change it. So you can always see what I quoted you last week. You can always see where we started and where we got. And then exactly, it's like, big thing too is most people buy homes, especially in San Diego, they're expensive, with a partner or a spouse, or a
Hmm.
husband or a
Hmm.
wife. And it's hard to get both of them on the phone, even if they do want to chat. So doing it in a video, hey, you can look at it on your own time when you're driving home or when you're at the office or you're putting the kids down. It gives them the flexibility to both get the information, when it's convenient. It's so
Yes.
convenient for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, so you're creating efficiencies, but also transparency, which is
Yes.
fantastic. Yeah, and
Correct.
you're absolutely right. I can't tell you how many times I would talk to the wife or the husband, and then either things get lost in translation, or you have to have the conversation again. So for
Yeah.
you, really, it's a one and done. And when you're, as you said, when you're trying to scale your business, these types of efficiencies become critical.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't tell you the number of times, like, I'll talk to one spouse, as we know, but maybe the other spouse is the decision maker. Maybe they've
Hmm.
already talked to somebody else and gotten different information from another bank. And like, now you're relying on one spouse to relay how good your education was, how clear you were
Yeah,
explaining things, what program is best. And like, that won't happen. Uh,
impossible.
the video is the only way to get that information to the other spouse when they're like reluctant to get on the phone, or they feel like, no, no, we've already got our loan figured out, but the others, they're not on the same page. It's the only way you can get through to the other spouse a lot of times. And then
Yeah.
they realize, oh, wow, this is, and then it opens the door to make deals happen.
Yeah, and again, I think it's been a great part of your success. Are there any other tech pieces that you really kind of consider a mainstay in your business?
Um, I would say, like, Home power is huge for the quoting. Like I'd say my tech is multifaceted. So home power is one for sure. For approval letters, for quoting scenarios, interest rates, closing costs, all that stuff. That hands down, it's the best. And then on top of that, like you do have to take it one step further. You can't just make a quote and send them numbers. In my opinion, it has to come with a video, like I mentioned. And I know most lenders, like it's a small investment, I'm sure, or maybe a large investment, but having a setup that is not your living room or is not your bedroom or wherever you do, you work out of, even if it is, like find a corner, get a quality camera, even get like a light off Amazon. The quality of the picture and the quality of the, just when you're presenting the information goes a really long way because it elevates the whole thing. Nobody at a bank will ever have a setup like this when they're
Yeah.
giving information, and it adds the experience enormously. Like not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it, how it looks. It all factors in every time everybody's impressed. And it just, makes it like, hey, us at All Western Mortgage, we have really competitive rates, but we pride ourselves on our service level and our integrity and our creativity. And, a client might, find something cheaper with some call center out there who sucks, but with our high level of service should come, that should be across the board, right? Not just we have
Mhm.
great underwriting and great communication, but it also should come like, hey, we should present information, in a sexy format that you like
Yep.
to watch. And so that's on top of that. I haven't incorporated much AI into my business. I don't use like a lot of email. I don't use any email automation, text automation.
Mhm.
I haven't gotten there yet. I do want to at some point, but I've really stuck to home power. Videos have been about it, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, you're a smart guy. You're going to adapt. So, earlier we talked about communicating with the consumer the way that they choose to be communicated with. So right now you have a great niche and a great kind of lane that you're running down, and that might change down the road. You never know what may happen. I think the key for all of us is to stay flexible and be ready to adapt when it's required.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I
Is there
do
is it
think, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say though, is there on that note, is there anything you've tried that just didn't work for you?
Um, hmm. Honestly, like when I got set up, I like Sam, my mentor, gave me the playbook, like, here's how you should quote, here's how you should interact with clients. Honestly, I've yet to find a CRM that I love, I guess. Not that it's
Mm,
like really failed me, but every time like I want something very simple that I can keep track of and with, maybe I only have 10 minutes between calls. I want to take a quick look, send my follow-up texts and know exactly what's going on. And I've yet to find a CRM that makes it clear, easy, without a lot of clicks, without a lot of stuff on the screen. So like I've just gone back to the rudimentary Google Sheet to track my follow-ups.
okay,
And honestly,
interesting.
like I just want a sheet. So I just have to find a CRM that works. But I have my sheet is literally realtor name, the referrals I've gotten from that realtor, just the name of the client, and like maybe one or two words like down payment assistance, first time buyer, move up buyer, VA, and that's it. So like when I go in, I want to see clearly, oh, I need, I could follow up with Ryan, Jack, Sarah, boom, boom, shoot out text. In the CRM, it's like I have to click 10 times just to get the filter for this
Yeah,
agent and these
yeah,
referrals. And then I have to do it again. It's like I
yeah.
just want to scroll. So CRM I haven't been able to fit, but client facing, not really. I've tried to keep things as personal and direct from me as possible.
So that's
So
okay. So maybe the message is sometimes we try to overcomplicate things,
yeah,
and keeping it simple is the best advice, right? And something that works for you, whether it's a snapshot, it's easily accessible, it's something you can get in and update very quickly. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a great point because again, I think we get so enamored with technology and we
yeah.
want it to do everything for us that in some cases it may slow us down.
I think so. And I think like especially as you grow and now I have maybe, 30 realtors that I'm working with, for example. Like I can no longer remember, hey, with this realtor, I have this many clients with this realtor. I just visited one of the offices that I work with and, there was maybe 8 realtors in there and I work with all of them. Have a few clients here with each of them. And like I can't remember, what the clients I have with each one, but I want to connect with each one and be like, okay, yeah, how's this person doing? How's this person doing? When's the last time you followed up? So I need something like immediately that I can pull up for each one of them. It's in one place. And okay, these 3 clients. Oh yeah, like how this person doing? How's this person doing? When's the last time you talked to this person? So it needs to, and what I've learned is time is the most important thing. I
Mm,
cannot waste time inputting information twice. I don't want to waste time finding information. Things need to be as fast as possible. So I think dumbing it down,
yeah.
and then it gives me more time to make the personal connections, which is what I want, which is like, you know, I take 10 seconds to review, okay, where are these clients, jog my memory, these names, and then call the realtor. I want to stay in front of realtors and my clients as much as possible
Yeah.
myself.
So you talked about keeping it personal. Do you draw a line between automation and this has got to stay human?
Yeah, yeah. I honestly try to keep everything coming from me. I just got to the point this year where I have an assistant who will do client communications just for conditions. But I want to be the main point of contact for the realtor and the client. I don't let them get automated much of anything, which may slow me down a little bit, but I want to keep the personal touch the whole time. So I really
Yeah.
don't automate anything. All the communications coming from me for conditions. What I have done too that has helped me a lot is get even more thorough on the front end to make the escrow process and the conditions even easier. So most of the news just good news mid-transaction instead of that friction of, hey, well, now we need your tax return and now we need this bank statement and this pay stub. If I can be thorough on the front end on the pre-approval, okay, I know it's a pain, but like I need your RSU docs, I know I
Yep.
need the vesting schedule. I could wait for
Mhm.
that later. I could probably know they qualify because their DTI is 35 and I know they'll be able to buy a house, but if I go the extra steps on the front end, that has made me a lot more efficient mid escrow because
Mhm.
I'm not searching for things, and it makes the client experience more enjoyable because they're not stressed about the house and stressed about getting me stuff. It's like, bump it up to the front end and then let escrow be smooth, and then I can spend more time out there, finding clients.
Yeah, I mean that's tried and true, right? That is,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, many loan officers miss that very important point. And I don't know what it is. I guess, there's a lot of factors that go into that, but ultimately at the end of the day, you've got to get the information. It's got to be submitted into the deal. And I love your approach of getting it done earlier. So I want to kind of get back to this issue here, younger versus older loan officers. I'm not trying to start any fights here or get you in any trouble, but I want perspective. Um, what is it that older loan officers just flat get wrong about younger borrowers today?
Mm, I think um I think younger borrowers, they can be a little stiff with them. Like I do try and be as professional as possible. I wear stuff like this most days, but um, there is a fine line between being professional and being like uptight or stiff. Like a lot of my younger buyers will say like, yeah, that guy was so stiff, or I thought you'd be really stiff. Like you should very, very humanizing in your conversations. And for maybe older people, it's a little more difficult. I don't try and use slang or anything like that,
Okay.
but I try and make it like they're talking to a friend. And maybe that's just a little harder. Like I think older lenders could probably try harder to make it more personable in those conversations to younger borrowers
Yeah.
instead of like, how much money do you make? What's your credit? It's like, no, like, learn who they are a little bit. It's like if they mention that they just got back on a trip, asking about that. I think just connecting with the younger borrowers a little bit more, the younger borrowers enjoy than, being a little bit more on the stiff and dry side.
And putting people at ease is always important. We forget about uh, the complexity of the transaction, and these folks are nervous, right? They're sharing personal information,
Definitely.
and if I can put somebody at ease, that gives us an advantage. Do you think that, back to the topic of communication, do you feel that plays a role in the older, loan officer versus the younger borrower? Maybe they're not comfortable putting a Loom video together using home power. Maybe they want to send the six emails with PDFs and all that. Is that a problem, do you feel?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah. I mean, just as you said earlier, like at some point I'll have to adapt, certainly. And just like any business of any industry, if you don't adapt, I do think you die a little bit, You can still run a business. And it depends on your demographic. I mean, there's certainly plenty of people who like the older school way of working, who are, seasoned older borrowers probably don't mind that way of interacting. But I think a lot of borrowers, maybe the majority these days, are under probably 45. and
Yeah.
but especially buyers. Refinancing maybe a little different story. And so I think you have to push yourselves out of your comfort zone, which may be harder for some older loan officers, but you have to push yourself out of the comfort zone and evolve a little bit, and be comfortable. Not saying social media, like I don't do a ton of social media myself, but doing these videos and using new technology is a must. I think it's a must. You absolutely have to.
So
Um,
when I'm sorry, finish your thought, please.
yeah, I was gonna say one other thing that comes to mind too is, um, and I don't know if it's so much an age thing, but I do think that as you get older in this industry, you find your like how you operate, and like I've seen lenders who are like, I don't do down payment assistance. That's for young people, right? Like, or like that's too hard. That work is too hard. And I think that in this industry, no matter what age you are, if you shy away from some of the hard work, the harder deals, um, you will also falter because, I think if you get complacent and you don't, I think what comes along with doing harder deals, honestly, is just a drive and a desire to help the client that the client can feel. If you don't share with them anything about down payment assistance in their first buyer, maybe they don't have a lot of money. It's like, well, if I talk to them and share with them 3 first-time buyer programs that I'm approved for, that give, a grant or that give, 100K towards their down payment. It's like, who are they going to feel, is more knowledgeable, wants to work harder for them, and has their back, is that person who can give them all the options. So I think, like, I know this, not to hit on my old man, but like he's calling me because I told him about a first-time buyer program in San Diego. He got approved himself. He finally has a client who's using this down payment assistance, which is great, but it's hard. And I told him, like, it is painful to do this program. They collect a lot of dogs. The underwriting is difficult. It takes a long time. And he got through the transaction after calling me, half a dozen times. Griffin, like, what do I submit this? How does this work? And next time
Yeah.
he's like, Griff, I'm just gonna give it to you next time. Like, I don't want to work that hard. Which is fine if you don't want to work that hard. I get it. He's near retirement. He's probably half
Yeah.
retired by now. But for the other loan officers who want as much business as they can get, consider that is like put yourself to do the hard, the hard things.
Yeah, I think my opinion was always that I never know where that may lead. Every deal, and small loan amounts were that way too. Maybe a
Yeah,
second mortgage,
totally.
things that you might say, but ultimately, I always felt there was another opportunity behind that deal. So I can't pass that up because I'd be passing up another opportunity. And I think especially in today's market, we've got to be ready to roll up our sleeves and take on any challenge.
I think that is in the next 5-10 years, cookie cutter borrowers, high FICO, high down, low DTI. I think we will see a lot of disruption by AI. These bigger mortgage companies that are developing. I don't know what Rocket has up their sleeve. Like, I think the everyday loan officer who cranks cookie cutter deals, especially in our, independent mortgage banking space, I think that they will lose market share in those deals because
Wow.
other companies will be able to cut
Yeah.
margin,
Hmm.
as they, and I think for us as loan officers, we have to get creative and learn hard deals that
Yeah.
we won't be able to be, disrupted and taken over by AI. Whether
You-
it's seconds, down payment assistance, non-QM, I think we have to know everything. We have to know as much as we can on those tough deals, or
Yeah,
we're gonna lose.
that's great advice. And you're right. We don't know what's ahead of us. But the one thing that, and as I think about what you're saying here, I would agree completely. Those models won't work for the more challenging customer. And we here at AWM, we pride ourselves in really being able to service any transaction. If it can get done, we have a deal, we
Yeah,
have a loan for them. But yeah, I mean, I have got LOs who have built their business on turn down and being, that second opportunity. And so I 100% believe in that. But let's again, I want to move into kind of back, well, first time home buyers. We talked about them a little bit earlier, but the affordability mindset is a big issue right now. I mean, geez, you're right in the center of all of it down in San Diego.
yeah,
But we fight media all the time, and
yeah.
we know that the age of the first time home buyer is rising. People are waiting a little bit longer. But from your seat, is home ownership still available to your age group?
It definitely is. I mean, short answer is yes, for sure, but it's harder. It's definitely harder than it was 5 years ago, and I'm sure, prior, especially in high cost areas where home prices are only going, are going up, and people aren't making that much more money. So
Wow.
they really just need to be savvier, honestly. So it's possible, but it is becoming more daunting, and part of it like relates to, you do have to be more empathetic to those, you need to understand, you have to be more empathetic to those people.
Mhm.
Those people might be longer term, it might take a year. Might need to nurture those people for a year. Again, I think everything's leading us towards the direction of harder work, longer follow-up cycles, longer time to transact, more education. And so, you just have to be ready to work hard. But it's possible for those people. I do think though that as people get feel the pressure of affordability, they are more willing to put in energy themselves of finding a deal, whether that's rate shopping, whether that is looking for the right program. And so a big way to differentiate yourself, and that I've done, is, hey, I'm going to learn every first time home buyer program that can make home buying more affordable for clients in my area,
Mhm.
especially, and I'm going to offer that to every first time buyer and see where they fit in. Even if they don't use one, they feel taken care of. But a lot of clients, like, heck, them saving 20K because on their down payment because a program could cover it, like, that can go a long way. And
Huge.
I've had clients who they were turned down at other lenders, and like we were able to use a program that was able to help them, make them qualify, be the
Yeah.
difference.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I've seen this on some of your deals, via the Home Simple program.
Yeah.
Um, but what I noticed is, so in and I don't want to get deep in the weeds on the product on this podcast here, but the traditional way for people to move up was they get their starter home, they build
Hmm.
some equity in that, they sell that, they take that equity, they put it into the next home, which is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer. I'm seeing that firsthand in some of your clients because I'm looking at their departing residence, the home that they're
Yeah.
leaving.
Yeah.
It's a little smaller, it's a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
older, and then I'm seeing what they're buying, and they've got a bunch of equity in the home that they're leaving that they want to swing into that next purchase. That's the way it's done. That's the way that people get started and move their way up, not necessarily because they can afford more, maybe they have, huge advance in their income and their earning. They're simply taking advantage of the equity and leapfrogging into that next purchase.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, and I mean that is how most people who have normal careers, the broad majority of people, that's is how they build their family wealth.
Yeah.
You look back at at my parents' generation or the boomers, most of them have money and have low mortgage payments because they purchased a home at some point in the past.
Hmm.
I don't know many older individuals who rented their entire lives, who have a super high, net worth. It's just like most people have equity, and that's where a lot of their net worth comes in their house.
You're
And so
absolutely right. Yep.
you have to use it as a stepping stone. But exactly the vehicle in which, especially in a competitive area like San Diego, to move up is hard because that money's
Mhm.
trapped. And there are some other programs out there that will help free up some of that equity so they're not contingent, but they're just expensive. They're so darn expensive. It's hard to stomach them giving up 30 or 40 or 50K of
Yeah.
equity just so they're not contingent.
Mm.
So honestly, I will say too, a lot of my success the last year has been embracing Home Simple, and solving a problem. I think that mortgage lenders, um, when it comes to finding realtor partners for us as lenders, realtor partners have a million lenders who are nice people who I like to work with, who can close quickly and have a lot of loan product. Like, every good city has 100, 1,000 good lenders who can do that. We have to have something that stands out,
Mhm.
whether it's, non-QM, whether you like, down payment assistance, whether you have a program like Home Simple. I've used Home Simple. I mean, it has opened the door for so many relationships. Having a unique program that solves a really big problem has opened the door for, maybe 8 or 10 of my current realtor relationships. Home Simple has opened the door.
Wow.
And yeah, and I use it where I can, but it solves a huge problem. And then once you become that problem solver, I use the niche and the hardworking, the difficult product to get me the rest of their business, right? You
Yeah.
have to come
Yeah.
in with something special. You cannot just be in this networking group that I just joined. I was going up against these other loan officers. They had great reputations. They have good books of business. They've been around for 20 years at big reputable lenders. And we stood up in front of this group and they said, tell us what makes each one of you special. And I wanted to go last on every single one. Every single time they'd say, "Oh, I love working with people. I've been doing this 20 years. I can close in 14 days." And I'm like, that is not important to anybody in this room, especially the realtor. I'm like, when I was my turn, I'm saying, hey, we have this program that solves a real issue that makes buying more affordable for people, that can get them their house, that new house. It's actually solving a problem. Like that's what makes me stand out. And you have to have something like that, or else you're the
Yes.
same as everybody else. Like you don't have any competitive advantage.
Man, you read the room correctly on that deal for sure. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, the days of just saying, hey, I return phone calls and my rates are good. Those days are over, and especially in
It's
today's day and age. So, yeah, and it's great to have that. That you have something in your back pocket, a little bit of a
yeah.
superpower, that you
Mhm.
can pull out when you need it.
Absolutely. And like for lenders who don't have that or whatever, maybe that doesn't work as well in their market, um, become an expert in something, whether it's like local, like I've been telling first time buyers about the salt tax change, from the bill that just went through. Like they become an expert in something that most people aren't talking about. And those things are all over the place. Like for me, before I got, a huge Trojan horse for me was just understanding condos. Just like I know, I was talking to one of our guys over in Miami where they have, a lot of non-warrantable condos. Like, I don't want to do non-warrantable condo deals. I don't do many, but understanding the nuances of that, makes me stand out so much. People will call me. It's like, hey, I heard you're the condo guy. Like, I have this tricky situation. They're all over
Yeah.
the place,
Well,
you
and
know.
and and most people will not do condos. I mean, that's
No,
so you've definitely that's a lane that you can run down and have very little traffic in it.
that's the thing. And again, it's not because I want to attract that, but it's
Yeah.
because of I want to be the expert. I want to be the guy that people come to because they come to me for that. They see, oh wow, this guy knows a lot. Hey, I have this family here. I'm never trying to go in the front door. I'm always looking for, hey, how can I add value in a
Mhm.
creative way? And then, I build trust, they like me. And then the second piece of that, which is also important, I've really embraced this year, is making the ask.
Ah,
I think Neil
yes, yes.
posted, like, I remember, I think it was my first forward event that I went to or something like that. And he made this saying, like, when was the last time you asked for business?
Mhm.
You don't get really what you don't ask for. And so I'll come in with like great, hey, I can help. I have this unique product or this unique solution. If you have any buyers looking to buy condos, like here, and then once I get an opportunity, I'll make the ask. Hey,
Mhm.
I want to work with you. I'll be direct. I want to
Yeah.
work with you. I love the way that you operate. I want to help your clients, and let's do business together. Who do you have? And then I always say like, give me one. I just want one opportunity to impress you. Just one opportunity. A lot of realtors, a lot of partners out there, yeah, they'll give you one chance. That's not that big a deal. But
Yeah,
that
but then you bring out all the tools that we've talked about earlier in the
exactly.
conversation, and then
Yeah.
the customer feedback and the customer experience is so strong that now that first opportunity turns into a real relationship.
Exactly. And you can't say that you can't say that with a hollow tone. You have to
Mhm.
be able to execute, which is
Yeah.
like the third stage, right? Like the first stage, okay, great. I have this thing. You make the ask and then you have to be able to execute, and that's when it all ties together. The videos like tie together with the experience and the knowledge, the fire, client, it all is one it works together. And then with that, that's how you grow business.
Yeah. So kind of going back to that first time home buyer and the mindset, I think anybody listening to this is going to want to know, you know, say treat me like I'm 26 years old and I'm hearing all the bad information. Maybe I'm hearing I should be renting versus buying, all the online noise that's coming through. How do you coach me through that? And how do you get me to that next point in the process where I'm actually listening to you?
Good question. I usually started off with like first you have to understand their why. Why do you want to buy? Like why are we on the phone? Maybe they're expressing to me all these concerns they have. But that's not their, there's still a reason we're talking, right? I'm on the phone with you, for example. Hey, Chris, like, there has to be a reason you want it. Like, why is that? And it's anything. It's, hey, my parents have been really telling me I should buy a house,
Yeah.
or, I've always wanted to buy a house. I know it's a good thing. It makes me scared because I hear all these negative things about interest rates or whatever. So once I figure out, okay, like, what is your motivation? And then I just, address their fears. Hey, what's your why? Okay, this is why you want to do it. Well, let's address your concerns and see if they're valid or not. I had to buy the other day. Well, I work in software engineering. I hear my company's bringing on this AI. Literally, I'm in tech, and I'm scared for my job. And I'll tell them, like, I'll be straight with them. Like, I'll explain. I'll walk you through how buying works, but I don't know if you're nervous about not working in 3 months, even if I can get you a loan and give you a house, that is maybe something that you should sort out before making a
Mm-hmm.
commitment to this
Mm-hmm.
mortgage payment that's twice your rent.
Yeah.
So first figuring out their why, understanding if their fears are, where those are coming from. And then I tackle everything with knowledge and education. My job is just to explain it in a clear way to you, how the process works, what you need to be able to do it, and then some ways I can help with work with you to strategize saving money on interest, or that's kind of the second half of the ball game.
Mm-hmm.
But the first half is getting them on board, making them feel comfortable, and then I think education and knowledge trumps all fear, right? Like I always do my first call with clients is usually 45 minutes to an hour, religiously, because I want them to explain, okay, hey, look, in this call, I'm going to explain with you how we look at your qualifications. Here are the things that we look at, your income. This is what we look at. We look for 2 years, stability, job gaps, credit, like this is the minimum, this is the maximum. If you're over that, great. If you're in between, interest rates can be more expensive. I go extremely deep on educating them on what we look at just to qualify, period. Okay, great. Once you qualify, let me tell you about some things based on what you said that I think can help us. Like, hey, there's a 2-1 buy down we can negotiate for, permanent rate strip buy down. And I just explain to them every facet of buying and something that might benefit them. By the end of the
Mm-hmm.
call, they understand how much they roughly qualify for. I'll usually send them actually on my first call. This is another like secret that I started doing this year is while I'm talking to them, I'm getting their qualifications, I'm taking my notes. I'm like, great, let me pull up my calculator. I'll put a couple hypotheticals. You're looking for something at 600K with 10% down, 550, 500. That's the range. I'll put it into Home Power on my phone. Like I'll do it in my phone. Hey, I'm going to text you right now. I text them the link to the Home Power quote, and I'll have them pull it up and we'll talk through it together.
Wow. Wow.
Hey, this is what goes in your monthly. This is what PMI
Mm-hmm.
is. This is what taxes are. So that way they can see something. And that way after the call, they can take it to their wife, their parents. Hey, like, this is what it looks like. And they can hold on to it. It's something tangible. I added them value. Every time they love that. Like, wow, I got so much value from Griffin. I learned about my qualifications. I learned a rough idea of what it looks like to even buy a home,
Yeah.
monthly payment, closing costs, interest rates. And it gives me a good template to explain to them, hey, let's look at, your FICO sound a little low. Maybe we can get your credit scores up, but let's look at FHA versus conventional. Right now, let me
Mm-hmm.
explain to you the differences that nobody else will explain to you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one has upfront MIP. This one, maybe FHA has a little bit higher. Maybe the FHA monthly, PMI is a little lower than conventional because your FICO is 680, and I know it's your monthly MI, your monthly PMI might be 1% versus 0.55 FHA. The rate's a lot better. So I just tackle it all with transparency and mountains of information.
Yeah, wow. You're really pulling back the curtain on
Yeah.
what could be a complicated and really a kind of scary process, right?
Yeah.
Again, going back, we do this every day. As you said earlier, you might do hundreds or even thousands of loans, but to that client that you just took, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to really dive deep into the process and give them the background. Don't just run through the numbers and talk to them about DTI and LTV, things they have no clue about, but really give them the deep dive. You're building rapport, you're building trust, and obviously that's why you're capturing all these people.
Exactly. And I love it because what I'll do is when I get the introduction to the client in a group text thread with, the agent, hey, Sean, here's Griffin, I set up time to chat. While we're chatting, my agents know, oh, Griffin just sent in a home power quote. And so without me even talking to the realtor, now they can see, oh, these are the price points that
Ah,
Griffin and that Sean might want to buy. Looking at
wow.
scenarios at 400, 450, 500,
Yeah.
and that boom, they already have information. I'm not even off the phone with the client, and they like, they can reference back to that link too in our group chat. So
So
when they're
efficient.
talking, it's yeah, it just tackles a lot of birds with one stone. And then the agents, like Home Power is so slick. I mean, the agents love it too, because the agents like, wow, that's great tech, right? If I work with
Yeah.
an agent for the first time, like, hey, just make one connection, your next client, they interact with me and they see that come through the text thread while I'm on the phone with the client. They're like, wow, this is slick. It also impresses the agent, gives them information.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce for my, and the first call is when you get the buy-in from the agent and the client. It's really the first call.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I mean, this is really you're giving a roadmap here to success. And I want to before we wrap this up, I think, we all would agree that we need some more youth in this industry, right? We need more people like you out there, the experts that are going to carry through when old guys like me decide to retire at some point. And so, help me give some advice here. And obviously, the getting started is the most difficult part of our business. It's a sales environment.
Mhm.
Maybe you look back. I spoke to someone the other day here at AWM, who started off on the processing side and then kind of elevated up through and then transitioned into sales. But if you had to give one piece of advice, how would you what would you tell me, and how do I get started in the business?
I would say number one, learn as much as you can. Yes, sales tactics are good, but honestly, I think confidence and clarity comes from knowing is knowledge. Just like I said, like I think knowledge is what trumps fear. Scared clients, you give them a bunch of information, a lot of education. Now they feel confident, right? You can kind of squash that fear. So I think a lot of new lenders, they get scared, talk to realtors, talk to clients. And the way to combat that is learning, Literally learn, how we calculate qualifications. Learn how the difference between conventional FHA, VA, like read guides, honestly. But what I would say the number one thing, like I have a buddy who's a bit of a new lender up in Washington. He's not with AWM, but he should be.
Yeah.
But I told him, he asked me for some advice. I said, dude, if I were starting right now, I would learn the basics and then I would learn honestly, a first time buyer program or something that's super niche, whatever that is. I think down payment assistance is the easiest way. Look
Yeah.
up, Google, just Google, hey, what are the down payment assistance programs that my city or state provides? Here in California, we have Cal HFA. They'll provide 3% for a first time buyer's down payment. I literally just read the guides. I read the guides. I looked at the front, emailed their help desk. Hey, I don't quite understand how this works. How does this work? And, they will answer you. They'll tell you how their programs work. How do I get signed up? They'll tell you how
Yeah.
to get signed up.
Yeah.
And that way, when you're out there differentiating yourself or talking to realtors and trying to get business, I would just talk about it. Hey, I have this. It's the only thing you have. I have this program I'm approved with. This is what it provides. And that's what honestly what I do. Set
So
yourself
there,
apart.
So there it is. That's and we already talked about earlier that a lot of loan officers don't want those loans to begin with. So
No.
you've eliminated a lot of your competition. Okay, so that's piece of advice number one. Start with a product, recommend DPA, learn it, know it, and go promote the heck out of it. Now I want to ask you a second
Mhm.
question. Is there something that I need to avoid? Like what's a mistake that you see people new to the business making that they just can't? You can't make that mistake.
Personally, I think it's selling rate. Like we have a promotion here. Like I've seen new realtors do it. We have a promotion here, or hey, our VA rates are really good. That's just not the way I run my business. Like, yes, good rates are important, but I think selling rates is the kiss of death. I don't think realtors like hearing that. I don't think clients like hearing that. Everybody wants good rates for sure, but I'll see new lenders, go out there and try and sell rate, and it's just not the, it's not a good representation of actual skill, which is not some low interest rate. Actual skill is like, hey, I'm going to help you navigate this crazy market and this crazy process of home buying.
Yeah, great advice. Wow. Well, Griffin, this was a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I mean, so much good content here. Honestly, if I was new in the business and I was gonna get started, I would listen to this conversation. You probably gave a good 5, 6, like just really solid bits of, I think, advice and things that would really lead people to success in this industry. And obviously, congratulations to you on all your success. Being 28 in this business, it's no small feat. Being a top producing loan officer, really proud of you. And yeah, just keep it going, man.
Appreciate it, and appreciate all the support from the top, Chris. One more thing I wanted to add is
Sure.
somebody asked me why I chose my company. Like, hey, why'd you choose the mortgage company that you work for? And I said it's because I pride myself on running my business with integrity, and wholeheartedly I believe that that starts from the top. You know, the culture of a company absolutely starts from the top, and since day one, you've always epitomized our service level and how we treat clients and the way we run our business, and that aligns with myself. And so, anyways, just want all the way down to my manager and our regional managers and everything, Jeff. Just want to say, yeah, appreciate you for doing what you're doing and the way that you treat the business. That's why I'm here. And yeah, I just
Thank
appreciate
you.
that coming from
Yeah.
the top.
Appreciate you saying that. And you know what? It's easy to support a guy like you, Griffin. So again, man, thanks again for joining me today, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
take care. All
All
right,
right, you
bye
too.
bye.
See ya.